So you were talking about your Blazer there a little bit ago. What was it that you had replaced on it recently?
Oh, the fuel tank and fuel lines, because they had, well, it was always leaking, but it finally gave out leaking, where it wouldn't even run.
Gotcha.
And then it sat for another year and a half before I was even motivated enough to actually fix it.
That was leaking when we went to West Virginia, wasn't it?
Yeah. But again, like, you filled it to the top and it'd be fine.
Right.
Or, excuse me, you fill it to the top and it would leak. We get about, I don't know, 3/4, half a tank, and it'd be fine, and it wouldn't leak. But then I'm like second guessing, like, how crappy that fuel float, like, how is the level sensor, like, because the odometer works, but the trip, like, sometimes works, and that's putting it nicely. Sometimes works. And when it does work, it doesn't make it past 200. For some reason, 200 is the topping point on the trip part. Can't go past 200 for some reason. And I don't even know, like Dorman or somebody makes a new gear set, like, because it's mechanical, right?
Yeah.
On both of them. So there's you can get like a replace gear set for your trip, but it's like universal, and so it like works OE on some, and then some others you have to kind of modify it. And I'm like, and then like I can't find anybody that rebuilds these clusters, because like yours, there are people out there that actually just rebuild the stepper motors in the cluster, or the backlights, or the little LCD. Does yours have the little LCD like in the middle? It's a Chevrolet when you start it up. Yeah.
So what on your Blazer? What instrument cluster do you have? Do you have that one where it's white?
The non-crappy one. I do not have the. I can't swear.
You can't.
I don't have the basic one. I've got actually the mid one. So it's got the TAC, the 4 gauges, so oil pressure, volts.
Okay, so
coolant,
you have
and
the later generation.
No, it's the upgrade. So a base model, like a Cayenne 2-door Blazer, would have came with a single. Right. Okay, so the S10s and like the base model CK trucks would have had this weird, I don't even know what, like, backlit odd gate. I don't even know how to describe it. But it's not your needle overlaying.
Right, it's
numbers.
like it's got a white wheel in
right.
the background.
It's got
that
right
rotates around.
Because that's what I have in my Silverado. Is
right. So the Blazers would have had
one.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but all the Blazers either would have had just a giant speedometer with no tack and like a few gauges across the top, or you had the Silverado. I don't know if it came with the Silverado package, but it had the upgraded cluster with the tack, and the 4 gauges across the top. Now, thanks to another buddy of mine in Maryland, he was like, "Oh yeah, there was a TSB about them. People complaining that the top small gauges, they weren't perfectly straight. Oh, you look like yours isn't perfectly straight, and now I can't unsee it every time I get in the truck. It's like it just kind of crests a little bit of the top gauges. It's not perfectly lined, and now it kind of bothers me."
You can fix it, and you could fix your gear while you're at it.
I know, but
is it worth fixing it?
No,
just
not
leave
for that.
Ohio, and you'll never go past 200.
No.
Just reset it when you get to the end. Start back over.
That poor truck needs a transfer case so dang bad that, like, I mean, it's probably out of fluid by the time I drove it home and drove here. Because somebody rebuilt it and cracked the pump. I tried JB welding it and all kinds of crazy stuff. That freaking... And then, so I was reading up on it, is basically once, like, they start vibrating, once you get, like, a drive volume vibration and these... they call it a NP241C. Because I guess there was versions of the 241 that would have went in Mopars, and they called them Ds.
Oh, okay.
That would have went like a Dakota or something. But they've made the 241 a bunch of, like, an evolution, just like the transmission. So this earlier evolution of it has the fluid pump exteriorly bolted onto the tail shaft part.
Okay.
and somebody tightened the bolt too tight and cracked, and it just hemorrhages transmission fluid because it just takes ATF, hemorrhages transmission fluid, and so it's a nice undercoating, I guess. You know,
You're not going to rust. You might not move, but at least it won't
it's
rust.
rusting. Oh no, we've made it like when we went to, you know, when we went to West Virginia in the mountains. Like by the time we made it out of maybe like Chillicothe or what's the one further south? Circleville. By the time we made it probably to Circleville, it was that. I put fluid in it. I put it in 4 high, and it goes in a 4-wheel drive. I've never had a problem with it.
Who needs a transfer case?
Right. Who needs a transfer case? Just direct drive. Just
Direct
blow
drive.
blow out the chain and everything. But again, it's mechanical, except for like a $20 switch for the front diff that decides to work when it wants to, and I had to replace it
For $20.
For 20
minutes
bucks
of your time.
Yeah. But there's no code. This is so old that like you're lucky enough if you get flash codes. Lucky if you get flash codes. Like it runs so poorly because it's a crappy Jasper engine that I just have not given the time to like figure out why it just runs good enough to move on its own power. But it's definitely not running like 100%. And like the only time it's ever thrown a check engine light was going like up the mountains when I was moving from Maryland to here, going through Cumberland and the Appalachians. Like the only time the thing has ever set a check engine light for like, okay, now we're running really, really badly. Like we were just running badly before, but I'm okay with that. We're running really, really like OBD1 is such a terrible garbage. Like, I mean, it was a leap of advancement, but it's terrible compared to the technology and diagnostics today. But I don't know. I'm gonna LS swap it. Maybe all of that will blow up.
I would definitely fix your transfer case before you.
Okay, so the conundrum on the transfer case is: do I buy a used one for like $200-300 that's already 30 freaking years old, or do I buy a reman one for like $800 to $1,000? Does have a warranty. That's $800 to $1,000 on a transfer case.
If you're gonna LS swap it, I would lean towards the remand. Personally, I think.
I think so too, but I kind of want to get the LS to actually work
Prior to putting the $1,000 potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've got, it's just a Gen 4. Is that right? It's an early Gen 4. It's like out of like a 99 2000 Suburban, like 5.3 iron block. It's got like a gajillion miles, and basically the body and transmission fell out of it before the motor quit. So I'm going to have to like, fortunately it's not an AFM engine. But
Freaking nightmare.
right. So
Yes,
I don't
it
have to
is.
delete all that fancy jazz. And because the Blazer is a factory manual Blazer, which is ultra rare, not very valuable, but it's rare, and I want to keep it that way, I can't go crazy because there's not really any alternatives to keeping it four-wheel drive and manual transmission. So there's the 3500, which is what Kyle has in his truck.
And then you have the 4500.
You have the 4500,
which is what they had in the 2500s
Right.
and the 3500s.
which are
full
definitely
time.
stronger,
Yes.
but they're geared definitely for a truck.
Yeah.
And then you had this ZF transmission that you could get in a 2500, like 6-liter, and like the Duramaxes, like what, 04, 05, that
Something
era
like that.
Silverado. And those transmissions, like used, are like $3,500. Not to mention having to fabricate like how to make the cross member.
Yeah, to mount
to mount it, to change the drive shaft. You know, like to get it custom, because I'm sure the length is not going to be the same. Like a 4500 is going to be an easier swap, but the gearing, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with the engine because I can't go crazy. So the LS is going to have 100 plus more horsepower than the crappy TBI 350.
Literally the slowest truck I've ever driven.
Oh,
in
it's
my entire
terrible.
life.
Oh, it's terrible. But,
But the fact is that mine's the 305,
right,
2500,
which is probably even
5
worse.
speed.
Well,
it is.
mine being a Jasper
Dog
engine's
turd.
probably
It's dog
equivalent. I mean, I could put like a S10 4.3 in it and it actually moved better than this Jasper engine. But anyways, so the torque is actually the same, or pretty close to the same. The LS only has like 5 or 10 more foot-pounds of torque than the 350.
Would not have guessed that.
So, but I mean, a 350 has the range of about like 1,000 RPM window before it just craps itself out of torque. Like if you look at a peak torque line, it just kind of like checks out, just like a check mark. It just is there, and it just kind of there as the horsepower just goes down. Where like an LS, they just kind of both go up and merge nicely and keep going. But I'm afraid of that poor transmission.
Well, the NV 3500 isn't known to be the most reliable.
So if it was just an automatic Blazer from that era, I would have no problem just like either putting an automatic, just having a beefy automatic in it, or just converting it to two-wheel drive, LS swapping, putting like a T56, and spending the money doing like conversion, you know, of the cross member and drive shaft and all that. This is like, I don't know. It's special in the way that they didn't build very many. It's not valuable. It's not like a Yankover, but somebody did check the I want the manual transmission box. And in a Blazer, they are like, there's no actual figures, but I want to say it was like, I want to say GM on their, like, there was somebody had archived a sales pamphlet brochure, and they estimated that the number of people or percentage of people buying a manual was like 1% of all the Blazers, like 1 or 2%. And I think that was pretty generous too, to be honest with you. I mean, I've only seen a couple of them.
See, but now that they're remaking Blazers, maybe your values start to go back up. Like when Alpha came back to the States.
So the Blazer, GM's just pulling, on the new Blazer, GM is just pulling name recognitions to sell cars.